On this week's desk dispatch, a couple of new drops from Esterbrook, as well as an update on existing Esterbrook items, and a sharing of my current reading list. Hello friends, my name is Frank and welcome to Desk Dispatch, a place where I review and curate tools that are coming across my desk, mostly analog, sometimes digital, as well as taking a look at some of the analog routines and structures that I'm playing around with, so just having a few reflections on that, or anything else that's somewhat analog related. On today's Desk Dispatch, couple of drops from Esterbrook, and then just a little bit of an update on some of the existing Esterbrook items that I have. Quick cat moment to share, and then sharing my currently reading list. So just a quick preface before we dive into a closer look at the Esterbrook items here. Number one, I was gifted a couple of items by Esterbrook, just in full transparency. Number two, I do also have my own Esterbrook items that I have purchased from them in the past as well. So I just wanted to take a look at Esterbrook in general, because when it comes to old school charm and nostalgic throwbacks, I think Esterbrook does an amazing job of that. These are Esterbrook STs. This is the Sea Glass. This was my first Esterbrook pen here. I think it's so gorgeous in terms of this aesthetic, the styling, and the celluloid approach. This is the Botanical Garden. And both of these pens that I've just talked about here are converter pens. And then Esterbrook was kind enough to send me this pen, which is the Nouveau Bleu ST. And the unique thing about this pen here is that it's a piston filler. Here's the converter in the Sea Glass, and there is no converter in the piston filler because you fill up the body of the pen with ink. And that's why you have this little window here to see your ink capacity and where it's at. The back of the pen comes undone, and you've got a little push piston in here. What you do is you submerge your pen into the ink and you just plunge the piston a few times and it'll fill up your ink reservoir right away. One of the considerations you might have if you are thinking about picking up one of these fountain pens is that the converter is obviously easy to take apart and clean. The SDs here, it's the same thing actually. You can take this all apart, and there are videos out there that show you how to do that and give it a good clean if you are interested. Really, it's about convenience, styling, and the carrying capacity. The button piston here holds more ink than your converter. I actually don't know what the spec is off the top of my head here in terms of the ink capacity. Now, the advantage of using the converter here is the fact that you can swap out the converters, making ink swapping quite easy. And obviously you can use an international cartridge as well, so they are swappable in that respect. The button piston filler is just slightly longer than the other two pens, as you can tell, given the fact that the piston mechanism is on the back end of the body, and so it's going to make the body just a little bit bigger. All three pens for me are in a medium nib. I was interested in picking up a different style of nib from Esterbrook. They do a journal or a scribe, a few others, but they didn't have any available, so I ended up just going with my tried and true medium. These are Nouveau nibs and number 6, and also steel nibs, just for your consideration there. The journal and the scribes are custom grinds from various nibsmiths that Esterbrook works with. I find the medium is kind of it's a nice medium. It's not too wet. It still writes decently big, as it should for a Western medium. If you're familiar with the Nouveau nibs, it's a great writing experience. They're the pretty smooth nibs. I've had no issues with the nibs that I have in my STs here. Lovely pen, glides across the paper, no complaints. Just wonderful. Might as well look at the other two pens that I have here. So this is the Sea Glass, also in a medium nib. This was my first Esterbrook ST pen, and I fell in love with it. This one's inked with Gentle Green by Teranashi, by the way. So it writes blue, but then dries green. It's pretty cool to see on camera. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's pretty cool to see it in person. Again, great writing experience. Consistent line width, as you would get and expect from the Nouveau number 6. Last one here is the Botanical Garden, which is actually my wife's pen. She loves this pen, can't get enough of it. Lovely pens. They're all medium nibs, so I use them primarily for long form journaling or long writing sessions, with the occasional writing in my traveler's notebook here and there. I think if I were to pick up another SD, I would definitely be trying out a fine nib. Now the other thing that I was gifted by Esterbrook here is a page holder. This is the Bee Bookish page holder, which is a brass page holder. And that guy is this. It's a beautiful solid brass. It's big. It's really big. But it adds a nice charm to whatever you're doing in terms of holding down your pages. So you just slide it on like this, and it keeps your pages flat. It's big, so there's a little bit of impracticality when it comes to just, having this while you're reading or journaling, right? But if you're just trying to hold something down, I think that's really cool. The look also is very gorgeous. The brass styling I really like. There are other page holder options out there, and I do use another one as well. This is an Anchor, but I really enjoy the Bee Bookish, primarily for its look. It is just stunning, and it draws you in, and I think it's a great addition to the desk. Probably very superficial in that respect when I say that. Some of the other cool stuff that Esterbrook was kind enough to send me here, they're the ink cartridges, which are standard international ink cartridges. They fit anything that will normally take a short ink cartridge. Nothing special to write home about in terms of the actual ink. I think it's just a really good black ink, and most black inks generally are. Well, I suppose there is some variability in the consistency of a good black ink. And then they sent me some cool blotting paper as well. And these are actually kind of fun to take a look at. This is kind of their nature. This looks like it's a nature series. So then I love the old school diver. Just the aesthetic about Esterbrook, I think, is so cool. I'll put links to their products in the description below. Feel free to check them out. Sorry, I don't have an affiliate link or anything like that, but if you are interested in checking out their products, they are super friendly, very nice people. Before we move away from Esterbrook completely, one of the other Esterbrook items I bought is this guy here. This is the Esterbrook To-Go cup, and I bought this 3 years ago, just about now. I think it's actually been 3, yeah. And the whole premise of the To-Go cup is a carry for your fountain pens in a cup styling. It carries 6 fountain pens, or 6 pens, 6 writing instruments, and you just wrap it up like a sock, snap the button, and cinch this up. So this has been through quite a bit. We've taken it traveling. It's my wife's primarily. It used to be mine, and then she really liked the look of it, so took it on. And it's held up generally well over time. There are a couple of considerations that I would say, if you're interested in this, that I think do warrant a bit of a discussion. Number one, the leather that they use here it's light. And so you'll notice on the leather that it is coming apart. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then the cinch here will come apart as well in bags. Like you're just relying really on pressure of a double knot. And it'll work itself apart depending on how rough you are traveling with them. The other consideration here is if you've only got 5 pens in here, these dividers will start collapsing. And if you're traveling really rough with them, as we tend to sometimes, then these pens will just kind of work its way into each other. And then you've got pens rubbing up against each other, dividers collapsed in the middle because it's not fixed. That sort of defeats the purpose of keeping your individual pens protected. Just keep that in mind if you are looking at this. I do think it's a great, unique product, and it's an interesting take traveling with your pens or keeping your pens mobile or your writing implements mobile. If you are going to travel with less than 6 pens, maybe just try and stick something else in there just to maintain the integrity of the structure that the product is designed around. It has some staining, which is normal. I mean, this has been 3 years later, so we have some ink staining across the inner liner here and a little bit of bleed through over here. That's typical. I think it's perfectly fine, but surprisingly, overall, given how much use the To-Go cup has seen, I think it's actually surprisingly blemish-free. Feel free to check it out at the Esterbrook website, which I will put in the description below. I love to read. I'm really focused on nonfiction, but I occasionally slip in a couple of fiction books as well when I'm looking for a bit of entertainment. Some of the amazing books that I've recently read are Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. This is a great book with respect to negotiations, not just in the professional setting, but also in the personal setting. And I think it's just absolutely fantastic that Chris, being a former FBI terrorist negotiator, shares his words of wisdom and a little bit of a take on flipping the typical negotiation rhetoric with respect to win-win and what you're really trying to achieve when it comes down to negotiation. As you can see, I've tabbed this heavily and I have annotated the heck out of this book. It is actually pretty much a daily carry for me at this point because I keep referring to it. There's so many little nuggets of wisdom and also practical approaches that I've been trying to employ, and I can say that actually do work really well. The other book that I recently finished is Project Hail Mary. I love Andy Weir books. He does such an amazing job of thrusting you into a very science-heavy or science-laden setting or story or plot. You'll get scientific terms thrown at you left, right, and center, but it seems incredibly practical in fantastical situations. I have to be honest, I saw this trailer recently featuring Ryan Gosling, whom I adore as an actor. I was blown away by the premise. So I picked up the book. I got through about halfway through it, flipped over to an audiobook because I just thought it would be really nice to listen to on some of my drives. And I have to say the audiobook version is just as incredible as just reading it physically as well. I ended up doing both just because I love the story so much. I won't spoil anything about Project Hail Mary. Let's just say the sun is dying and our protagonist needs to figure out how to solve that and save all of humanity. A really crazy, cool, and surprisingly emotional story. Now on my current reading list, Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. This is about Stoic philosophy and Stoic approaches, but really focusing on the facets of self-discipline, or discipline in general, temperance, and how discipline and self-control really is the ultimate freedom in terms of how one approaches their life. I just absolutely adore Ryan Holiday's take on taking historical wisdom, ancient wisdom, modern wisdom, and combining that all into just kind of pragmatic, practical, day-to-day approaches. Your Brain on Art, How the Arts Transform Us. This is a cool, fun, quick nonfiction read. I think it's just fascinating in terms of concepts of neuroplasticity and what the arts really do for mind, your brain, and what some of the skills that come from that. It's heavily laden from a perspective of the latest science and research, and I thought that was a pretty interesting take in terms of just combining something that's historically viewed as quite abstract in terms of what art form is, and combining that with the perspective of deep science and research and how the two intertwine and what that actually is telling us. So this one's a pretty fun read, and I'm quite enjoying it. Your Brain on Art, because I love reading about history and ancient civilizations, and Rome seems to be one of those ones that I keep gravitating towards. Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard. This is an amazing book talking about the emperors of Rome. Obviously, Mary does a great job of just contextualizing the landscape and the environment that these emperors were in. Not just the main figure as the emperor, but all the other characters and players around them, and the navigation of the political landscape, but as well as the ancient world and what it meant to be an emperor of one of the great empires in history. The last one on my currently reading list, which I'm almost done, this is by Daniel Cross, Whalefall. This one's a really fascinating read, and you can see this is on my Kindle because I've been reading this on the go quite a bit. Whalefall's a fiction book. I won't spoil anything. The premise is that a diver gets swallowed by a whale, and I'll leave it at that. When it comes to analog routines and structures, I posted a video last week with respect to the analog items I carry, and this one seems to have really resonated with the audience out there, both in terms of the specific analog tools that I curated for myself, and also the routines that I have placed around the storage of these analog items and the carry of the analog items. Feel free to check out the video here. I'm always playing around with different tools in the background, and I think in those 5 categories, with respect to the pocket knife, the notebooks that I carry, the bags that I use, and the pens, as well as the watch, there's a lot of playability in terms of what specific items I can bring with me on any given day. I think the point really that I was trying to share there is that there's categories that I view as something that's really oriented around a growth mindset for myself. I think that's something that I've been really kind of reflecting on, is just the fact that Quite a long time ago in my life, I reoriented my approach to my life, treating my entire life as a project, looking at it from the growth mindset lens and not necessarily looking at myself or my life as a fixed entity, but a flow of events that I'm trying to direct the traffic of. There's a huge thing to unpack there. Maybe I'll share that in an upcoming video, but this is some of the stuff that I'm just, reflecting on this past week in terms of continuing this journey of a slow, intentional, analog living and what that means in a modern, fast-paced world. And to clarify, I'm not advocating for a complete disconnect from the digital facets that we are all immersed in. I'm looking at this from the perspective of, okay, how do the digital tools help us? How do they serve us? And how do they go back to the category of actual tools versus something that can easily take over your lives and are in some ways driving how we approach our lives? I'm trying to flip that narrative for myself and take a look at it in terms of the creativity that can flow. Obviously, I'm sharing my creativity on a digital platform. This isn't completely analog, but I find that there are great things about the digital world in terms of learning, in terms of the information share, in terms of how we communicate to each other. It really is just sorting through all of that information out there and trying to find things that serve us instead of things that we are beholden to and are driving us. Anyhow, there's just a lot of reflection in there that I've been just journaling about and reflecting on in these last few weeks here. In terms of a look ahead into the next desk dispatch, I am maturing in my professional career, my day job, which I'm very excited about. And also it's just something that's contributing very much to that growth mindset that I was just talking about. Anyhow, going back to the analog tools that I carry and constant playing around with them, I have been searching for a leather bag that I think contributes to just the sense of the professional self that I am bringing to the table and maturing in the career. I thought would be a great opportunity to mature in some of the tools that I bring to the table and how I present myself in different settings that I'm used to. I was very lucky to be in touch with a company in France called Bleu, and they were very kind enough to send me this amazing leather bag. This is a Zeppo business bag, and I'm not going to say much more than that because I want to give it another week or two of just working with it, and I'm going to share all about this bag on an upcoming desk dispatch. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. If you made it this far, please consider clicking on the like, subscribe buttons below, as well as if you wish to support me, please consider clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and bye for now.